want to thank you for coming out to hear the message from the NAACP. You have probably heard throughout the crisis that's going on in the United States at this time. We are not pleased what is happening, but we do believe that people have a right to protest, but not necessarily do all of the other negative things that are happening. African Americans have had enough, and we're tired. And what we're looking for now is more justice, to be treated fairly, to stop all of the discrimination that we have experienced. We're tired, we've had enough. And so what we're calling on our Decatur community, because we want to have a peaceful community, but at the same time we want to recognize the ills that exist in this community and what we need to do to make it a better place in which to live, not just for African Americans, but for all of the citizens in Decatur. And so therefore today the NAACP is calling upon all of the citizens in this community to keep our community safe. Whatever it is you need to do as an individual, help keep our community safe. We deserve a safe community. The NAACP throughout the years has worked with the police department, has worked with the mayor in trying to maintain a good relationship in terms of how African Americans are perceived in this community. We're thankful for the way the Chief Getz has been in assistance with us. He helped to form the alert group so that anytime we have an incident in this community where an officer ends up shooting an African American, that we will be contacted as the NAACP. We want to know the truth about what happened so that we can tell our community. There's nothing worse than having a community misinformed or not informed. And so we work with the chief to get that message out. Are we sugarcoating for the chief? No way. We wouldn't dare do that. We want our community to know the truth and to respond to the truth and the truth only. So in a few minutes, we'll tell you more about what we expect to happen in our community in terms of how we as citizens can make our place a better place in which to live. So at this time, we're going to have the mayor to come up and say a few words.
I appreciate the words of Dr. Janelle Norman. And on behalf of the city of Decatur, we too mourn the loss of George Floyd. As we look at the events that followed, we see not only his heartbroken family, but demonstrations calling for an end to hate in this country. For more than 200 years, Americans have protested, rallied, and demonstrated to show support for causes and to call for actions to change our world. Peaceful protests did change America. There are still changes that need to happen. We have also witnessed the chaos across this country in cities where violence and looting is breaking out on a daily and nightly basis. Some of that came to our doorstep last night. It cannot happen again. Decatur and Macon County, we are better than that. Do we have problems? Yes. But the bigger question is, can we solve them? And again, the answer is yes. The way to make things better is not to follow the lead of cities filled with acts of violence and destruction. That does not solve our problems. Here, we can work on what needs to happen. We can work on being better. We can sit down and we can figure it out, and we can do it together. So I am asking the people of this community to join in mourning the death of George Floyd and to let his name be remembered for bringing people together, not tearing us apart. Decatur, we are better than the chaos we see elsewhere. Let us stand together. Chief Getz.
Good morning. I want to thank NAACP and Dr. Janelle Norman for having me here this morning. This is a time for leaders and especially me as a police chief to be out, not hiding in my office or hiding at home or anything like that. What happened in Minneapolis should never happen. Should never happen. I've been doing this for 21 years. It was the stupidest thing I've seen. I just can't. When I watch it, I still can't believe it. So we would never support that in Decatur. My officers, believe me, they know better. We train to a higher degree than that, and we care about our citizens. We know that you sit on somebody's neck or put your knee in somebody's neck for 7 minutes is wrong. It doesn't take extra police training and stuff like that to know that's wrong. It's all about being human and decent. And so common sense should have kicked in there. So we're not trying to hide from that. That was a terrible thing that police officer did. That represents a very small percentage of all the police officers in the United States. Here in Decatur, we hold our officers to a high standard. We watch and listen and see what's going on out there. We listen to our community. And so all we're asking is for everybody to be peaceful. If you have issues, bring them through the proper channels. Bring them through the NAACP. Call my office. Reach out to those other folks that can help you out. The way to do it is through peace. We know what happened up there was wrong, and we're ready to move past that and make things better here in Decatur.
Good morning. We all know why we're here. A gentleman named George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis. And it seems to me that in our day and in our society, we have become so reactive. I think that this situation has gotten everyone's attention, from Minneapolis to Los Angeles to New York, now in Decatur, Illinois. I think it's time that we stop being reactive and start being proactive. Today we are listening, and I hope that the mayor's listening. I hope that the city manager is listening. If we don't do something and do something fast, it's going to get worse than it is today. Decatur is bigger than this. The chief of police is here today. I'm pretty sure if the sheriff was available, he would be here today. We have avenues and we have opportunities to work out our situations and our problems here in our community. None of us, and I mean none of us, advocate violence and looting. And from my own personal opinion, I think that people in Decatur should be very careful who is influencing you when these protests are going on. Not for 1 minute do I believe that the good citizens in Decatur, Illinois, would want to tear up their own places, would want to burn and loot. We have a lot of African American people who work at Walmart, who work at Target, who work in these businesses. We want, and I think what they want, is just to be heard. And if we don't start listening very soon, it will get worse before it gets better. Thank you.
One of the things that the NAACP would like to see happening in this city is to stop the discrimination. Our children come back from college and they can't find a job. It's all centered around the color of their skin. We have discrimination going on a regular basis. Sometimes we just try to overlook it, but we have had enough and enough. We are in deep mourning, as well as the nation, over the death of George Floyd. It shouldn't have happened. And you know what is most disturbing? To see officers standing around watching it happen and not intervening. African Americans want to be just as respected as all other people in this nation. And what we will continue to do is to work with the mayor, work with the chief of police, because we want to see Decatur to be the best place that we can be. What some people do not know is that years ago that the NAACP developed a complaint form so that when there would be misbehavior of police officers, citizens had a place to do a complaint. That complaint form is still in existence. Again, we want to thank you today, and we also want to introduce everybody who has come out who wants this community to be a better place. And so, if you guys will come one at a time and tell who you are.
My name is Will Legion, Criminal Justice Executive Chair, NAACP.
All right. We have people back there shaking their heads, so I'll just go ahead and introduce them. Michael Diggs is our first vice president. Larry Bruner serves on the executive committee. Reverend Walker is known throughout our community. Reverend Thomas Walker. Reverend Jimmy Waddell, standing in our community. Okay, we know when you're preaching, you're supposed to be upstanding, right? We also have Reverend Marvin Joyner, Mrs. Mildred Bond, who is also our secretary, Mrs. Irma Bennett, who is our treasurer. Anybody else wishing to say a word before we depart? Thank you.
Can we ask questions?
Sure.
Okay, I have a couple. So this could be for anyone who wants to step up and ask, what have been your emotions over the last week? You know, it's been 1 week since George Floyd's death. What has been your overall emotions from that day until now? Especially as we've seen peaceful protests and then what we've seen with, like you mentioned, a lot of chaos. What has been those emotions?
My emotions has been with frustration, anger, to know that there's still many insensitive people in the world, and it takes all of us to come together and unify and have what we would like to see in our community, in our world. And it takes all of us to be a part of that to make it happen. That's why I'm here today.
Do you mind stating and spelling your name for us, just so we have it for record?
My name is Marvin Joyner, Marvin Joyner.
Got it.
Okay, I have another one. So we hear we see it on social media, and we see it with our friends' timelines. How can people, white Americans, black Americans, what can we do? What would you tell them to do at a time like this? When you say the protesting, what more can we do to help this injustice that we're talking about? And so I'm really looking at also white Americans. What can white Americans do to help right now?
I think crucial at this point is to respect everybody. See, sometimes we look at the color of the skin and we think negatively about that person just because of the color of the skin. So start giving African Americans a chance to show that we too are human beings. We too have feelings. We too do not want to be discriminated against. We too want people to respect us, and we want you to be able to talk with us. You see, for a long time in this community, people tried to have a dialogue with each other. That's kind of faded away right now. But we need to be able to talk to each other and understand each other, because we have those feelings. We know that because we are black that we're going to face some issues that nobody else in this community will face but us. And then when you see the crisis and you see that African Americans are being done wrong, step in, intervene, say something. Just say something.
I've been in this community for well over 30 years, and Dr. Norman's been here longer.
Yep.
But I don't know, as a middle-aged white woman, what it's like to be an African-American woman, a young African-American man. I have a son. I have 2 daughters. They're white. If one of them gets pulled over, they're more worried about the ticket they're going to get and what their dad and I are going to say. The sons of one of these folks is pulled over. They have to worry about what might happen. In Decatur, Illinois, I can tell you, you are safe. The officers have to protect themselves as well. They can't see who's in a car, who has a gun, who has what. They're trained to be careful to protect themselves as well as the other people around them. But it's a different situation. I don't have the immediate fear of what's going to happen to me. that African Americans do. We've got to get past that. We've got to grow belief in ourselves and each other. There's got to be trust, but they have to know they're okay. And the officers have to know that they're okay, that they're not, putting themselves in a dangerous, they have to be careful as well. We've got a lot to fix, but it starts with dialogue. And we've gotten wrapped up in a lot of other things the last couple of months in particular. We've got an economy that's in shambles. We've got a pandemic. And now we have this. We've got to fix it here. We don't have a choice.
Excuse me. Your question bothered me.
Okay.
You asked us what could you do, what could be done. The first thing that really needs to be done, and what we never understand, is that there were 4 officers, 3 of them which stood on it. The other one stood by and said nothing. Why has it taken a week to charge it? Talk is cheap, dialogue is cheap, until you show us action. If they really want to show us that they are meaning what they say, charge them other 3, and we might start talking.
Thank you. I have another question. So we did see a peaceful protest yesterday in Decatur. What did that mean for you all to see a peaceful protest being done in our community?
Hoping that people continue to express themselves and that they can remain peaceful. You see, the expectation was that it would not be peaceful because of what? The color of the skin. But it was peaceful. An expectation that all of us should have had, but hope for the best at the same time.
I have another question.
Oh, are you going to let anybody else say that?
I have somebody, but this might be a question for Julie or Chief Getz. Obviously, I'm sure you guys saw what happened in Champaign yesterday. Could you touch on anything that the city has prepared for, or any of your reactions to just something that happened an hour away yesterday?
Yeah, we're aware of what happened to Champaign, but also happened in Bloomington and Peoria and other places as well. It wasn't just Champaign. We as a police department, we have to prepare for the worst, so we're prepared. I'm not going to tell you what we're doing, but we're out there and we're keeping the city safe as possible with the staff and the equipment and resources we have. So I can tell you that's what we're doing, and we prefer everybody stay home and do things peacefully. The rally at Central Park yesterday, that's what should be done, but it shouldn't be just a one-time thing. People were down there with the rally yesterday and preaching, let's change things, and half them people will probably never hear from again. So it's all about, let's talk about it now, but Reverend Fluker said it, we need to action. So instead of people just talking about it, meeting one time, this needs to create some dialogue and fix things instead of just talking about it when something bad happens.
Karen, any more questions?
I have one as well, and it's also kind of related to the protest that happened. I think it's probably for Chief Getz, if you can answer it. But regarding the fires that happened in the city overnight, were any of those likely related to any protests that
I think you're referring to, we had one big fire up at Starship Billiards. At this point, we don't think it had anything to do with any rioters or looters or anything like that. We had one house fire we think was probably related to that, and that was it as far as we're aware of right now.
is it related to that?
You talk about the looters and the people running around town trying to tear things up. That would be related to that.
You get the last word. You good? Anybody else want to say something? Okay, thank you so much.